Hello and welcome to GeekCast Radio. This is a special episode starring the brand new GCRN Zone con girl, MiraiBaby. Hello.
Hiyo.
And I am, of course, DFG and Mike. And basically, what Con Girl is going to be is MiraiBaby has not offered, I actually enlisted her to do this. She's going to multiple conventions throughout 2012. She's going to BotCon, you're going to SlagaCon, aren't you?
No, not SlagaCon. I'm going to SavCon,
Oh, Sav. Okay,
which
Sav.
is
That's
which is
Sav, Slag. It's all the same.
yeah, it's a new
Uh,
convention out in Savannah, Georgia.
right. She's going to BotCon. She's going to SavCon. She goes to San Diego Comic Con every year. So for us to have some sort of convention coverage, what she's going to be doing is at each of these conventions, she's going to take as many notes as she possibly can. And then afterwards, when she gets back from the conventions, we'll record one of these episodes where she kind of breaks down her experience at these conventions. And this past weekend, she spent 2 days in Anaheim at WonderCon 2012.
That I did.
Yes, you did. So, um, was this your first time at WonderCon?
Yeah, it was. Usually WonderCon is stationed up in San Francisco, and living down here in San Diego, that's like a 7-hour drive. So I'm not entirely sure why it ended up down here in Anaheim, but I jumped on the opportunity. I always go to Comic Con. It's run by the same exact people, so I figured it'd be around the same exact kind of show.
Right.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot like Comic Con, which, I mean, run by the same people. That's kind of expected. But all in all, I did have a lot of fun. I hope that it stays in Anaheim, though it probably won't.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So you were there, what, Friday and Saturday this past weekend?
Yeah, I had to work in the morning, so I didn't get to leave until right about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then, so by the time I got up there, it was like 6, and the hall closed at 7. So I didn't actually get to do anything on Friday other
Uh,
than meet up with a friend of mine that I was staying at her house. And then Saturday was my big day.
Ah. Okay. So walk us through what happened on Saturday then.
Um, Saturday was interesting. It's always interesting. Saturdays are usually the big days of the convention. If you go to Comic Con, if you go to BotCon, any of those days, usually Saturdays are the big days for cosplayers, for the big panels, for big names to be at these conventions.
Mm-hmm.
So the hall was pretty packed for a Saturday. It was, what I understand from one of my friends was that it wasn't all that terribly busy on Friday, but then because of Saturday, I guess, everybody's out of school, nobody's in work. They all go, hey, let's go to WonderCon, and then they all show up. The hall was nowhere near as packed as Comic-Con because it was so much smaller,
Right.
but yet it was still relatively packed. I mean, I wasn't being sandwiched between a couple of stinky dudes the whole time. It was quite airy and open, and the hallways between the booths were fairly large, which is always a welcoming relief,
Yeah.
especially when you're trying to get away from people.
Now, what kind of feel did WonderCon portray to you as far as like, were there many rude people? Were there, too many people where you're just elbowing everybody to get out of your way, or like what was the overall feel of
Well,
Saturday?
to be honest, as far as I understand, the entirety of WonderCon is a very laid back convention. It runs a lot like Comic Con does, but there isn't that much to see.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, Comic Con is a mile of convention stuff in that exhibit hall
Right.
for San Diego Comic Con. It's huge. But this was nowhere near as big, and generally, if I stood in the middle, I could see everything. So there was no real big rush to go and get something or to go and see something. There were always panels going on no matter what you did. So you couldn't see everything, but there was no real big feel of, oh my God, I have to be here in like 5 minutes. I'm going to be late. I won't get into this panel because I didn't line up an hour ahead of time, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what kind of stuff did you see on Saturday?
There wasn't all that much for me as a Transformers fan or as like a fan of many things, because it was more centered around Marvel comics and cartoons that I didn't necessarily watch.
Right.
So like I enjoyed what I got out of it, but generally I mostly hung around the IDW booth because one of my friends was working there. So I entertained her, she entertained me as we just kind of hung around and she helped people out. Occasionally I'd wander away and go check out some booth and buy some meaningless toy that I didn't need.
So what were some of the meaningless toys you bought that you didn't need?
Oh my God. I bought a set of drinking glasses that they only sold in Japan. And they're little Transformers animated glasses with Bumblebee and Optimus Prime on them, little chibi style.
Yeah.
They're the only ones that they ever made were those two characters, and dude was like, yeah, whatever, have them. I'm like, okay. So I bought those ones. Toy Arena was there, which kind of surprised me but made me happy at the same time because they had third-party toys, which BotCon is not going to have, but that's a totally different conversation.
Yes.
I have now a Rosanna Perfect Effect. I think she's 09.
Yeah.
Ninja.
PE09, yeah.
Yeah, PE09 Ninja in my possession, which makes me a happy camper because I've kind of been wanting. I wanted her last year and never got her, so I was pleased to finally pick her up now. I bought a couple of My Little Pony T-shirts. From this one awesome store that also has a huge selection online called WeLoveFine.com. But mostly I wanted the bag that they were giving away, and you could only get the bag if you bought something from them, and it's this gigantic steampunk Rainbow Dash bag. That's the only reason I bought 2 shirts. I got 3 bags.
Wow. Oh, that's funny. You told me a story off air about a douchebag. Do you want to tell the douchebag story?
If this guy's at BotCon, I'm gonna cry. But this, I wandered over to a booth just to kind of check it out, and I noticed that he had a bunch of toys laid out, and I was like, oh, I'll look through the box of toys and figure out what he's got. And tucked in the back of his booth is this setup of these 1984 Transformers. Like he had Trax and Jazz and a Prowl, and it was original 1984, and he had like a bunch of little mini bots. Mm-hmm. So I pick up this little tiny mini bot Cosmos to kind of mess around with him and play with him, and I was gonna buy him, and I wanted to transform him just to make sure that he wasn't broken and make sure that everything was. I mean, everything looked to be there. It was just a mini bot. Hey, they're not hard to transform. So I'm sitting there, I'm kind of fiddling with it, and dude taps me on the shoulder and it was just like, oh, don't do that. I've already had someone who's broken one of my toys by transforming them. And I'm like, okay, sorry. And I was working on then transforming him back, and I was being gentle about it, and I know how to transform Cosmos. I've done it before, and the dude just like snatched him out of my hand and went, I'll do it, and walked away. And I was like, okay, you know what? You can have your damn toy because you obviously don't need my money anyway. So,
wow.
I did not purchase anything from his table, and I really wanted that Cosmos, but dude was mean, so he didn't get my money.
Why does there have to be douchebags at conventions?
That's just the way that it works. They think, hey, they have the thing you want, so they can be dicks to you and try and get money from you even though they're being a dick to you. And it's like, okay, never mind. I'm going to take my business.
Yeah, that's kind of nuts. I know you said you didn't attend any panels, but just looking over the guest list for WonderCon this year, they had comic book writers Marv Wolfman, Mark Waid, J. Michael Straczynski. Let's see, who else do I recognize off here? Mike Mignola, Jim Lee, Mark Evanier, who's an animation writer. Very, very awesome. Will Wheaton was there.
Hmm.
Greg Berger was there too, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was at a table, and I said hi to him, and then he looked at me funny because he didn't recognize me.
Oops.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm not at all expecting him to remember me. I'm just, hi, Greg! And then he looked at me like I was crazy. And he's like, you need to remind me where you saw me from. And then I rattled off all the places that I saw him at. And he's like, okay, I kind of recognize your eyes. I'm like, oh, that's a plus.
Oh, that's funny.
I've seen him
Um,
every single year for the past 5 years. It's totally fine that he doesn't remember me, though, because of all the people he meets. I'm not at all hurt
well,
by it.
yeah, I mean, millions upon millions
Mm,
of people meet Grimlock every year, so.
mm.
Um,
I'm not at all butthurt by the fact that he doesn't remember me.
Now, one thing people need to know about Mariah is she's huge into plushies.
Yes.
And she has a plushie that S. Chung made her, Musha168 on Twitter, Skywarp. And it seems to me that Skywarp was more excited to see the convention stuff than you were.
He was. He is 2 and 1/4 years old now. Since I bought him from since I adopted him from Musha, and this is his very first convention. I feel really bad because for the past like 2 years since I've had him, I've left him at home during BotCons. I was totally gonna bring him to 2011 BotCon, and then he was on my couch when I left the house, and I didn't notice that he was missing until we were halfway up there. So I wasn't able to turn around and go get him.
Right, right.
No, he enjoyed it though.
um, what else do you have to report for WonderCon?
Um, hmm. One of the things that I am actually kind of happy about was the Nintendo booth was there. Nintendo and Pokemon usually have a very strong presence at Comic-Con, but
Yeah.
for the past few years, Nintendo has dropped off the map and it's just been Pokemon. It's like I was super happy to see a Nintendo 3DS booth at WonderCon because that just generally doesn't happen anymore with for whatever reason for San Diego Comic Con just doesn't not really seen all that well.
Yeah.
There was a big like card table area, I guess, for like tabletop gaming.
Oh,
I
cool.
never checked it out, but I saw them. They were I passed by them a couple of times, and like they were like rattling off names and giving out prizes and stuff. So must have been for one of the tournaments they were having, but
Yeah.
that was kind of cool. I never actually popped in there though, because the tabletop gaming doesn't really interest me.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Were there any costumers up there?
There were quite a lot of costumers, actually. The one that caught my attention was my friend and I were going to get lunch, and we were walking into Anaheim Convention Center. It's like right next to this food court itself isn't all that big. But the one that really caught my attention was poor old dude in what looked like half of Optimus Prime. He's got his chest, the head, the arms, and dude is just like walking with them out of the food court. Scared the crap out of both my friend and I, and we just like kind of freaked out about him because he was like coming at us. I had the most fun watching the poor guy duck and crouch down and like try to waddle through the doorway because he was so tall. And then later on we saw him in costume, like fully in costume. I've got a few pictures of him. He's I want to say probably about 8 feet tall.
Wow.
Pretty tall, very large movie Optimus Prime. He lit up, his optics lit up, and I'm assuming that he probably had some sort of strut hooked up to his head, like from the
Yeah.
Optimus Prime head to his head, because Optimus Prime would turn his head sometimes.
Oh, that's very cool. That's very unique for a
Yeah.
costume to
Oh
do
yeah.
that kind of
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
That's
Especially
very intricate.
especially for a tall costume like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a little harder to accomplish. Um,
Overall, would you say it was a good experience?
I felt it was a fantastic experience, except for whatever the hell reason. When WonderCon came down here, it also brought San Francisco rain. So we have been having this horrible rainy storm the last like 4 days now.
Yeah.
It was very rainy and wet, and I was going to wear half of the costume I'm working on now because I just wanted to give it a test run, but I was nervous because of all the water and really didn't want to get him wet. So I decided against that idea. But that's okay, because I'll be able to test him out at BotCon.
Oh, yeah. If you can finish him in time.
I will. I know. I don't have a lot of time left. I have 20 days to complete him, and I'm not happy.
So, essentially what Mirai, as I said earlier, what she's going to be doing as our con girl for GeekCast Radio Network, she's going to be reporting in, and, you know, she only got to go to one day to WonderCon, so the future episodes of Con Girl will be probably very lengthier, very more lengthy as we go along, especially with BotCon and SDCC.
I have a feeling that SDCC is going to be fantastically gigantic.
Let's hope so.
And yeah, y'all might want to start planning your snacks now because I think it's going to be a long one.
So, yes, for the GeekCast Radio Network, I am TF2 and Mike, and you are?
MiraiBaby.
And this has been GCRN's Con Girl. I'm sure we'll come up with a better title at some point. I don't know. And we will catch you probably after BotCon. Late April, early May is when the next episode of Con Girl will be. So, Yep. We will see you then.
See ya.
I cannot believe Ratchet capable of such horrors. Yes, and to think the Doctor of Doom's mad quest for power continues.